Hi guys, so today we'll be picking up with chapter 31. If you remember, we left off with kind of a cliffhanger. So Early was having a seizure, McScott just got attacked by a bear, a lot was happening, and a woodsman comes out and we find out Early wakes up and he says, Fisher. So we'll have to see what goes on next. Chapter 31. My vision was a little blurry, and I squinted to see if I could find a resemblance to the youthful face from the trophy cabinet, number 67, to see why Early would think this was his brother. But all I could make out were the gaunt features and hollow-looking eyes of a bearded man, a lumberjack who'd felled his last tree and hadn't another swing of the axe left in him. Early smiled a distant smile at me. See, Jackie? I told you we'd find him. We found Fisher. His words sounded as if they were coming down a long tunnel, and it seemed that by the time they reached my ears, his mouth was already saying something else. Jackie, you don't look so good. I knew there were some timber rattlers left in the woods. I just knew it. After that, I only had snapshots in my mind of the events that followed, and they didn't make a lot of sense. First, the lumberjack picked me up, but then he changed into a great bear, carrying me through the woods. I knew my feverish mind was playing tricks on me, but which was crazier, being carried by a great black bear, or by the dead Morton Hill legend and soldier, Fisher Auden? Great breaths of air heaved and puffed against my face from whoever or whatever was carrying me. I could hear Early talking in hushed tones as he was walking along beside. I knew you were alive, Fisher. They said you were dead, and they said that the numbers were all disappearing, but I didn't believe them. You were just lost. But you're not lost anymore, Fisher, because I found you. Early continued, and I heard snatches of his tales of skeletons and caves and waterfalls and bears. More snapshots of trees and rocks and creeks. Then I was in a house tucked back in the woods, Eustasia Johansson's house. I was in a quilted bed, but dreamed of the bear and of Early. They were sitting on a bench outside my window. The bear was thin, as if he were on the starving end of a long hibernation. He lowered his shaggy head and shed heavy tears. His shoulders heaved as he cried, and the only sounds I heard were from deep, ragged breaths. Early put his arm around the bear's sagging shoulders. You can come back, he said, just like Superman did after the kryptonite also got him. And like Pi did when he kept his eyes on the bright star named for him. That was when the bear spoke. His words were slow and dreamy, all running together, as in a song on a record playing at slow speed. They made Early cry. Then Mrs. Johansson was there in the room with me. She put a hot poultice on my hand. It burned, and my hand felt like it was on fire. Then she brought me tea. It was too hot. She clucked and shushed until I drank it. It was bitter, but I kept it down. She said that I was a good boy and that she had missed me. She had gone back to thinking that I was her son, Martin. I was by the waterfall, looking for Early. My mind floated and bobbed like a bottle drifting at sea, but the message inside was unable to get out. Don't worry now, you just need to concentrate on getting better. You know how you get when you don't get enough rest, cranky as a bulldog. Her voice sounded so much like Mom's. I blinked, trying to make my heavy eyelids stay open to focus on her blurred face. She put a cool cloth on my forehead, and I saw her eyes gazing into mine. She held her hand to my face. It was so familiar. Her look, her touch. Mom? I blinked. It couldn't be her. It was just the fever playing tricks on me again. It was just Mrs. Johansson talking to her long-lost son. But it wasn't. Maybe it was the way she held my hand. Maybe it was the way she smelled of talcum powder. Maybe it was her voice, a mother's voice. Which was crazier, Mrs. Johansson talking to her dead son, or me hearing my mother's voice? Mom? Just saying the word, I no longer felt like I was adrift. The listing motion I'd felt inside subsided. I could see myself stepping onto Dinosaur Rock on Fisher's steeplechase, the current of the water surging beneath me. I got lost. I know, but you found your way back. Finding your way doesn't mean you always know where you're going. It's knowing how to find your way back home that's important. I ventured out further. And then I was mad. I shouldn't have gone off like that. Another step. It's all right. Sometimes boys have to stretch their wings a little bit. That's hard for mothers. But I wasn't there. I was gone. We all lose our way once in a while. I knew you'd come back. It wasn't your fault. I hadn't realized how much I wanted to believe that, to hear those words of absolution. They washed over me with as much force as a great waterfall, cleansing me from head to toe and carrying me away in a peaceful current. I miss you, Mom. I've missed you too, but I've been here the whole time, just a hop, skip, and a jump away. She smiled and kissed my forehead, her hair brushing my face. Now, you get some rest. You're tired as the day is long, and it's been a long day. Sleep well. You're not lost anymore. Good night, Mom, I whispered as the door shut, and I knew she was gone, and I slept a deep, motionless sleep. The next morning, my hand still hurt like a son of a gun, but the sweating and chills were gone, and my head was clear. I knew in the light of day that it was Mrs. Johansson who'd put a cool cloth on my forehead, whispering words of love and forgiveness to her son, Martin. I knew I had chosen to see her differently, but how had her words meant so much to me when she was speaking them to the son she thought had returned? Because she let me hear them as if they were being spoken to me. And I guess, in a way, I let her speak to me as if I were her son. Neither of us was fooling the other, but if a soothing balm is administered by someone other than a doctor, does that make it any less soothing? I put on my shoes and went into the main room of the cabin to find Early. There he sat at the kitchen table. I knew what he was going to say, as sure as if I were saying it myself. Early was going to say he'd found Fisher. He probably had the woodsman tucked away somewhere, ready to be displayed as proudly as the picture in the trophy case back at Morton Hill Academy. I could see it all. So when Early did open his mouth to speak, I was struck dumb by what he actually said. Mrs. Johansson's dead. What? I said, even though I'd heard him loud and clear. Early didn't elaborate. That's when I noticed he was sorting his jelly beans. I walked over to the table. I'd been around Early long enough to know that his sorting meant different things. If he sorted in groups of 10, that meant he was trying to organize his thoughts or solve a problem. If he sorted by color, that meant he was upset and trying to calm himself. I watched as he took each jelly bean and scooted it with one finger into its place. Today he was sorting by color: red, yellow, green, blue, orange, and grouping them into columns of 10. He was upset and trying to figure something out. It had to be about Fisher. Early, I said, avoiding any mention of Fisher or the woodsman from the previous night. What happened with Mrs. Johansson? Last night, after she got you settled, she was beaming like a lighthouse. He studied his columns of jelly beans as if they were magic beans that held the secrets of life. Not really, that's just an expression. No one really beams like a lighthouse. Most lighthouses use 500-watt lights, so that would be very bright. She was beaming more like a candle set in a window, but a closed window, so there's no breeze to make the candle flicker. It was a steady glow like that. What did she say? I asked, keeping my voice low and calm to match Early's, but his had a hint of pain in it as well. She just hugged me to her bosom. That's what ladies call their chest, and she thanked me for bringing you to her. Then she blew out that lantern she keeps up in the window and went to bed. This morning, I went in to ask her if she'd like me to put some coffee on, and there she was, all laid out, so peaceful and still. It was just like she said. Her body had done the work of living, and then it did the work of dying. And that man? I asked tentatively. The one who carried me here last night? He's gone, Early said quietly, staring at his tidy rows of colored jelly beans all sorted neatly by color. Everything was in order. Everything should have made sense. But I could tell from the look on Early's face that it didn't make sense. For what might have been the first time in his life, he couldn't figure it out. Just then, a tear rolled down Early's face, and in one motion, he swept all the jelly beans onto the floor in an explosion of color and chaos.